I know you have something to say.
You have to run up the end and tell them.
Can you hear us?
Okay.
Good morning, everybody. Sorry for the technical difficulties. This morning, we're gonna do operations on a 1965. Happens to be a 396 car. And we have our judge number one, Joe Scafidi, Dick Capello, and we have Bill Vinci as our car owner. So the first thing you wanna do is you wanna make sure that the car has the emergency brake on, is in neutral so that we don't have an accident. Okay, we're gonna start with ease of start.
For the owner.
Bill, before you start, tap the brake.
Okay, Bill. Yep. Hit the gas.
I have to tell people what the line item is in points.
Okay,
And what we're looking for if there's a deduct.
okay, so there's the horn. Headlights. I don't know how this is gonna work.
Don't get the car down till we say, get the car down. Yep.
Okay, headlights are open.
Yep. Turn them on. Front light, is that a parking light? Just a parking light. Okay, good. Headlights again. High beam.
I don't know if everyone can hear this. Can you hear this, Emily?
So we ran through parking lights, headlights, and I checked the high beam indicator while the high beams are on. So later on, when we get to that section, I know it's good.
Let's shut the car off. We're gonna shut the car off so everyone can hear us.
Yeah, normally we wouldn't shut the car off
Yeah.
now till the judging sheets say to shut the car off, but it's so loud.
Yeah, so we're gonna shut the car off.
You won't hear it.
Okay, now as far as points go, we
Right.
should talk about the points. For instance, headlights. What if one of the 4 headlights wasn't working? And what if high beam was working, but not low beam on one?
Okay, so we have 25 points for each line item, and we have basically 6. We have 4 bulbs, but we have 6 functions, right? We have 2 functions, high and low beam on the outers, and just high beam on the inners.
Correct.
So I would go for one thing, like if one high beam didn't light, it would be 4 points, right? Once we're gonna divide by 6, 25 by 6, but 24 by 6 is
Yep,
4 points, right?
Exactly, because you
So
can't,
4 points for each individual function.
4 points for each individual function. Correct. Yep. So you wouldn't take the whole thing, just half of it.
No, you take the 4 points. Take the full 4 points. Take the full 4 points, because that function does not work.
Just the high beam, just the
Right,
high
that
beam.
one
Yeah,
high beam on a light.
okay. Yep. Okay, now we'll headlights, turn signals.
Key on. Left. No, on, key on. Left direction. I'm good. You good, Dick?
I'm good.
Right directional. We're good?
Brakes,
Red light?
I'm good.
backups, doesn't have them. Windshield washer,
So all you're gonna do is you're gonna push the button. And we're gonna watch it go, watch it go.
Okay, we don't have any squirters.
Don't push the button again. Okay, now push the button. So we're gonna give them a chance to prime this up and see if we have any washers. It should be immediate. Did it again?
Not working.
So we have no windshield washers.
Nope.
And is it wipers and washers? Can we see high speed?
Yep.
Okay,
Okay,
take and shut them off.
okay, so now we have 25 points.
This is normally where the owner would say, they were working earlier.
Right. Hey, they will
They were
work.
working.
Windshield washers by itself.
Washes is by itself, so that's 25 points.
25 points. Didn't work.
Windshield wipers, 2 speeds.
Good.
So
High and low.
if it didn't work on,
If you can't tell
12.
between the 2 speeds, then we would take half of that.
inside, you've got the indicators, your high beam,
Okay, I checked high beam indicator when we had the headlights on and we did high beam. We didn't shut the key off right now. No, we have to leave the key on. We need to see
Can you hear us
directions again.
Same on the
Normally,
dash.
normally, even though it's a separate line item, typically, whoever's at the back of the car, when you do left directional, you just peek in, see if the little green green indicator on the dashboard is flashing. So we don't have to go back and do this again. It just makes the whole thing, judging go quicker. So left directional. Good. Right directional. Good. That's the parking brake flashing. Can you just close the headlights a little bit? Now pull the headlights button on.
they're not closed.
That's okay.
Yeah, he
They
wanted
only
them
have to be closed just a
partially.
little bit. So that light is lit solid. We gotta wait for it to flash. Yep, flashing. Okay, all the indicators are good.
Okay,
So there's 5 indicators there. The 25 points, so if one indicator does not work, it would be 5 points, 5-point deduction.
per indicator.
5 points per indicator, yes.
Okay, same thing, we've got gauges and tack.
Okay?
So you've got,
So one thing I did before he started the car with the key off, I asked him to hit the brake pedal. And normally, when you hit the brake pedal with the key off, you'll see the amp gauge
drop.
will move to the negative side as you touch the brake, because there's a drawer on the system and the alternator is not trying to keep up with it. Couple little tricks. Like I said, when you're in the back of the car and we're going through the lights, check the indicators. That way we don't have to go back and do that again. So I already checked the battery gauge, because sometimes you can't tell what the battery gauge is doing once the vehicle's running it. If the battery is supercharged and the alternator is working. So let's go ahead and start it again. We're gonna look at the water temperature, oil temperature, tachometer. We can't really tell anything from the speedometer, so that's kind of a given. When he turns the key on, the fuel
just lay it
gauge should go to register whatever's in there for fuel. Okay, start up. That's the battery gauge. Got about 45 to 50 pounds of oil pressure. And normally we keep the car running, so the temperature should have come up. They moved up off of 100, but not to shut it off right away. It's still kind of moving. So we're all good with gauges. And the same thing, we've got 6 gauges. Normally you can only really see 5 gauges because the speedometer is not, it won't register. But same thing, we divide by
points.
6, we have 4 points for each gauge.
Antenna,
Run the antenna up. So this is a power antenna. We power the antenna up and down. If it was a manual antenna, he'd have to get out of the car and physically push the antenna up and down.
Okay. Radio, Billy. And the radio should, the antenna should be up when the radio's on, so it can pick up better reception.
Now, let's talk about the radio before we actually check it. The new ruling while doing ops is the actual function of whatever you're checking, whatever the main function is, that has to work in order for you to get points. So a radio must play sound, music, or a talk radio station. You must hear something through the speaker. Years ago, if your radio didn't make any noise, we used to say, well, can you change the station and do your little buttons work? And then we'd give partial credit for that. But if you do not get a sound out of the radio, it's a full deduct. Whether all the other stuff works on the radio, you still get a full deduct. That's the new ruling. The
So-
same thing with the clock. If the clock does not move and tell time, it doesn't matter if you can reset it. Years back, we used to say, well, if you can reset it, I can give you half your points. The new ruling is the main function must operate before you can go and give any other credit or check any other stuff.
So try and find a station beforehand.
And that's what you want.
Okay, you got to put a key on radio on. Okay, so we had a major deduct here. It's on a country western radio station.
That's a total deduct.
This actually may be a 13-month suspension from NCRS, but we'll have a meeting with the car owner at a later date.
Okay,
Okay, so can we change the station? Turn it back on. Can we change the station and hit a button? Okay, hit another button. Now, what I want you to do is dial to a station. Okay, now pull one of the little buttons out. Now push it back in. Now dial off it. And then hit the button again. It should go back to that station. Beautiful. Okay,
okay,
everything works on the radio.
okay. Heater, defrost.
So the heater, we should have an off and 3 speeds on the fan. And then with the defroster control all the way in, we should feel no air. And then halfway
Nailed
out,
it.
we should feel heat. All the way out, we should feel defrost. If we do feel air with the knob pushed all the way in, then there's actually a problem with that function.
And a lot of what we could do is put the paper up here and you can watch it. Turn the key on.
Pull out, do defrost first. Pull the defrost button all the way up. Okay, man. Okay, see the paper move? We got high speed, medium speed, low speed,
Medium.
low
Yeah,
speed, very good.
That's low.
Okay, now put it back on high. Go halfway on the other knob. We should get heat at the floor,
Shut it off up there.
okay? And then push it all the way in. We should get
So that's a good way of telling the
Not
function of
getting any
that.
leaks, got
No
no
leaks,
blow-by.
the paper is perfect, you can see the level of the speed. That's a good way to do it. Okay. Kick panel vents, good.
Now this car.
Yeah, want to pull the 2 knobs for the kick panel?
They're on the, under the dash. Yep. The other thing everybody has to keep in mind when you do this, a lot of car owners really do not know their cars. Most of them have just been freshly restored. So you have to kind of walk them through some of these, where these buttons are. show the back end and all that. Clock, it's on the clock now, Dick. Again, like Joe was saying earlier, the full function of the clock.
Right. And I don't know if, is there a note in there about,
Clock and reset function.
right, but is there a note in there about quartz clocks being?
No, but
a
it's
deduct?
in the judging manual.
Okay.
It's in there.
So it is a deduct for a quartz clock.
Right, it has to
even-
be a mechanical
Has
movement.
to be a mechanical movement. Let's see it.
Yep.
Now, there are some new quartz clocks that do the tick, 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 and they imitate the function of the mechanical clock. A little secret for how to tell if it actually is a mechanical clock versus an electric quartz clock is shut the battery off. And if the clock stops immediately, then it is a quartz conversion. And if the clock runs on for another 30 or 40 seconds, then it is a mechanical clock, because the mechanical clock actually rewinds the electric function, rewinds the clock, and then mechanically it will continue to move. Where the quartz, the minute you stop electricity, then the clock is stopped.
Okay. Cigarette lighter.
You should be able to push the cigarette lighter in and it stays in. If the owner has to hold the cigarette lighter in, then that would be a deduction, a partial deduction, as long as it lights. Should take 10 to 15 seconds, and it should be hot. Dick, stick your finger in there and see if that's hot.
Good, good. Nice and warm.
Okay. Now, if this was a PV, they would want that to glow red. It didn't.
Push it in long enough?
Usually you leave it in about 13 seconds, that should do it. Just came out at 13, but couldn't tell if it was red. But, worried?
Did you put a small block cigarette lighter
I
in the
did,
big block
I
car?
did. Okay. Lights. Now we're inside. It's hard to tell these lights when you're outside. So there are little tricks that people use. Put paper over them to see the lights.
They should dim smooth. There is a light.
If you look in the corners of the gauges,
Right.
you can see the dim light.
There is a light in the ignition hole, socket hole, and there is a light in the cigarette lighter hole. The cigarette lighter light is a lot easier to see than the ignition light. So the other way, all the way to the left. That's the brightest. So, can I see a piece of paper? So a little trick for the cigarette lighter and the ignition switch is to make yourself a little tunnel. You can put over the socket. And then you look inside and you should be able to see some light. The trick I use on the ignition switch is if you take the key out, when you start to put the key in, sometimes you can see reflection of the light on the key as you put the key back. But there is a light in there. The radio light will only come on if the key is on. Otherwise, and the key is on and the radio is on. Otherwise, that function does not work. So if you have your radio off at night with your headlights on, the radio is dark. It does not light up.
Okay, Billy, you're gonna do the odometer reset function, which is that little rubber button.
Push it. Push it. And turn. Okay. Now for the turn.
So we're on the reset, odometer reset function.
Yeah, which is good.
And then as part of this also is the telescopic steering wheel, if it has it. This has it. So we're gonna rotate the knob, the chrome knob, pull the wheel in and out. Make sure it doesn't go back in. Yep. Now unlock it. Push it back in, lock it again, try and pull it out. So that's good. Seat adjustments. Have to get out of the car and adjust. Well,
It's easier to adjust the seat sitting in it.
you can do it.
So it should lock forward, and then it should lock in like 3 or 4 more positions.
There you go. Yep. Okay, now you got your windows. Got your side windows, your vent windows.
So we want to roll the windows up and down. They should be smooth and should take a gorilla's arm to roll up and down. The vent windows should come in and close all the way. And then as the vent window's running, you shouldn't see this move in and out. That means that the regulator is worn out.
They're nice and tight over here.
Now, one thing they'll do on a PV is they will actually check how much movement is in, and some of the team leaders will check to see if your regulator handle drops while you do this. If it's very worn, that will actually drop all the way down as you move the window back and forth. And there is always a bit of play in these vent windows. Okay, so when it closed down. The other side was good, Dick?
Yes, the other side was good.
Okay, then you locking and latching.
Okay, so when
Key
we,
function.
when we go to key functions and locking and latching on the doors, we want to have the window down. That way, nobody accidentally locks their door shut, and also it helps us check certain functions. Window down on that side too, Dick? Okay, you're gonna have to get up, bring the keys and jump out of the car.
While we're over there, we'll do the glove box light.
So first thing we do before we ask the owner to close the door is to lock it from the inside. And then we all know in 63 to 66, you have to hold the button in as you close the door. So hang on, let's try it once without holding the button. The door should unlock when we close it. Door unlocked. Very good. Now we'll lock it again. Hold the button in. Close it. Now the door's locked. Okay. Now we're gonna pull the handle from the inside, your inside release, and see if the door will open. The door should open. Okay. So in 1967, when you do that, you can't open the door from the inside. 63 to 66, you can open the door from the inside. Okay, we'll close it again. Lock it. Which way is locked and which way is unlocked on the 63 to 7? Lock is, yep. Lock is to the rear of the car. Okay, now shut the button. Unlock is to the front of the car. Okay. All right. Now I think that changes in 68 or 69.
Very easy to get them locked.
I think it changes where it's opposite. It unlocks to the rear of the car and locks to the front.
Now, is that key the same key as the ignition key?
It is, so 63 and 4, right? There's only one key to the car.
Correct.
And then in 65 and 6, there's a separate key for the glove box and the spare tire lock. And then in 67, same thing.
Glove box.
Okay.
So let's do this glove box. The glove box does open and close. Now we lock it. Lock. See if there's a spare tire lock.
Spare tire lock.
Yep, Again, we use the brown key. Yeah, they
Can you hear?
I always.
Well, we were gonna talk about that for reference purposes. The ignition key should not be able to go into the slot on the. Only the one key should be able to get in there.
This is good.
Okay. Next, we have our bonus points, which are the fire extinguisher, battery disconnect, and the NCRS decal.
We have a shutout, we have a fire extinguisher,
And we have a decal
we have a
on,
decal, it says NCRS.
go over to that decal, Tom. Sure. Okay, if anyone has any questions that they've typed in,
Yeah.
We're-
Emily has
we're gonna
some questions
respond.
over there.
so we can hear them.
Okay, here are our questions.
Okay, what if the directional flash is too fast?
So I would put that flash rate as a difference between judging for ops versus judging for a PV. There is a certain rate that it should flash. So if you use the wrong bulbs or you use the wrong flasher, it could flash too fast or it could flash too slow. As long as they're flashing somewhat in a normal manner, I would not make a deduction on that in an ops. Now, obviously, you may have a problem if you go to the next level and attempt a PV.
Yeah, so if you're gonna attempt a PV, please get this book from the NCRS store. It is very helpful.
Next question?
With a telly, is that how you say it?
Yeah.
With a telly steering column, should you retest the directions and horn with the telly both in and out?
I don't think
No.
I don't think I'd go that far on an ops check. I think we've checked them and, yes, there is wiring in there that could have an issue if it was old and brittle, but typically I would recheck it.
And then the last one was, are you allowed to change the channel to get sound? But you guys.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah, of
Definitely.
course.
You have to.
If you didn't already find a station when you got to the meet, your radio may be on a home station and you're 100 miles from home. So yeah, you can obviously, what I would find a station before, when I got to the meet, I would find a couple good
Yeah.
stations and already set my radio up. But if you had done that, of course, you need to
Keep
find a
going.
station to hear sound. Is that
Okay,
it?
so I want to touch on a couple of things that we didn't talk about when the engine was running. We have the choke, fast and slow idle. And the exhaust tone, noise, leakage, anything like that.
The other thing is before you have somebody start the car, somebody should check the fan to make sure the fan is tight, so that nobody is injured. Basically a safety thing, that the fan's not falling off or fan belt is not falling off. And, you have two judges looking at the engine and something comes flying off. So that's always a good thing to look at. And as far as the choke goes, high idle, in each of the manuals, there is notes for where the high idle should be. On some cars, it's 1500 to 1800. On some cars, it's 1600 to 2200. So you need to know what horsepower engine you're looking, what year and horsepower engine you're looking at, and what the specification is for where the high idle should be.
And then also, as you're checking functions, you need to, at the shifter, check the reverse lockout and then the parking brake function.
I would always have the owner check the reverse lockout with the car off. I've seen some nervous people, put it in reverse and then not take it back out of reverse and jump a car back 3 or 4 feet.
Most important thing is that owner doesn't just say, yes, the, emergency brake is up, something. See him do it.
Yeah.
Physically see it, because I've had guys get and say, yep, we're all set, ready to go, turn the key and.
The car jump forward.
4
I've
feet.
seen
Yeah.
it myself.
Yeah,
Yep.
owners are very,
They're
even
nervous.
though it's a bunch of friends together, judging a car, owners get very nervous when they go through this. And like Andy said earlier, there are plenty of owners that we see that they they have no idea how to use their car.
Right. They bought a Corvette that they loved and had somebody restore it, and they've never driven it. We have to help them through this stuff, so. Okay, well, I think that concludes everything. I appreciate everybody watching, and it's a nice day for it, and thank you very much.
How well does the parking brake have to hold?
It has to hold the car. So we have a question, how well does a parking brake have to hold? It has to hold the car in an emergency situation in parking, so the car shouldn't roll. When you're doing a PV, you actually have to put the brake on and try and take off in first gear. And the car should not move. Any other questions, Em? What is the definition of leak?
Definition of leaks is a physical drip on the ground. So sometimes, obviously, if someone didn't wipe all of their little wet spots off, because all these cars do kind of seep fluid here and there, you might see a little spot of oil on the edge of the oil pan, but unless there's something that's hit the ground, I wouldn't consider it a leak. That's it.
Great, that's it. Thank you. Okay, that was good. How did it look, Emily?
Good job, guys.
Thanks, Joe.
I think the other thing that you need to worry about is, again, telling judges, stay out of the car, let the owner sit in the seat,
Wow.
let the owner